There are a lot of people who I've known for quite a while, and some of them I wouldn't let wipe my dog's ass. Others I can take or leave. They don't matter to me. Matters very much. The reason being, I can trust him. I know I can trust him. He's honest.
Is he honest? Or is he just blunt?
He's honest, Bob. He's blunt as well. That sometimes is part of being honest. Because there are a lot of people who are blunt, but not honest.
Take our guns, burning up our flag, playing shitty country music, and they forgot about the hag. Well, don't you think it's time we all got downright mad? Let's take our country back. Well, I'd rather be judged by 12 than carried by 6. And that's just what'll happen if you rob me to get a fix. No, I ain't messing around. I got no problem putting shitheads down. Let's take our country back.
Today's show is sponsored by Farmer Joe's Fresh Market, located at 1401 Southwest Pine Island Road in beautiful Cape Coral, Florida. Farmer Joe's understands that how hectic people's schedules are during the holidays. Don't stress and avoid the mess, no matter if you desire the premium baked ham entree, the fully cooked rib roast, or my personal favorite, the fully cooked plain bill turkey. Comes with homemade sides and Hawaiian rolls. Everything you need and more. Lee County's greatest grocery store, Farmer Joe's Fresh Market. Joining me is attorney, businessman, multimedia commentator, and one of the greatest political analysts of our time, Mr. Ford O'Connell. We also are going to welcome a special guest, disabled veteran Army Field Grade Officer Robert Sutter, who will be joining us to discuss the calamity going on in the Cape Coral City Council and the reason he's decided to throw his hat in the ring. I am Smoking Joe, and welcome to Cracker Culture. Ford, it just doesn't make sense for these GOP debates to continue. I look at it like the RINO version of The View. Let's show some of the Americans what we were subject to, and give me your thoughts on what seems like an embarrassment to all conservatives.
I look at my watch now. We're 17 minutes into this debate, and except for your little speech in the beginning, we've had these three acting as if the race is between the four of us. The fifth guy, who doesn't have the guts to show up and stand here, he's the one who, as you just put it, is way ahead in the polls. And yet, I've got these three guys who are all seemingly to compete with, Voldemort, he who shall not be named. They don't want to talk about it.
You seem to be saying Donald Trump is no longer mentally fit to be president. Is that what you think?
Look, he is showing Father Time is undefeated. The idea that we're going to put someone up there that's almost 80 and there's going to be no effects from that, we all know that that's not true. And so we have an opportunity to do a next generation of leaders and really be able to move this country forward. We also need a president that can serve 2 terms. I don't think Donald Trump, I don't think he'd be able to get elected. The Democrats want him to be the nominee. We see that. They are going to turn the screws the minute, if he got the nomination,
but do you think he's
you're going to see it.
fit?
Why doesn't he just answer the question? The question was very direct. Is he fit to be president or isn't he? The rest of the speech is interesting, but completely non-responsive.
You have your thing.
Is he fit or isn't he? No, I don't have my thing.
We don't.
He's the thing. Is he fit or isn't he?
You're
talking about him being 80 years old.
It doesn't mean that somebody couldn't get elected. That's up to the people.
Governor DeSantis, let him
is he fit or isn't he?
No, Governor DeSantis, let him.
He's been very weak on China. Now, here's the problem. The rhetoric is different, but her donors, these Wall Street liberal donors, they make money in China. They are not going to let her be tough on China, and she will cave to the donors. She will not stand up for you.
15 seconds, Ambassador.
First of all, he's mad because those Wall Street donors used to support him, and now they support me.
I mean, Nick, if you can't tell the difference between where Israel is and the U.S. is on a map, I can have my 3-year-old son show you the difference.
He has insulted Nikki Haley's basic intelligence, not her positions, her basic intelligence. She doesn't know regions. She wouldn't be able to find something on a map that his 3-year-old could find. Look, if you want to disagree on issues, that's fine. And Nikki and I disagree on some issues. What we don't disagree on is this is a smart, accomplished woman, and you should stop insulting her.
So at the first debate, she said that only a woman can get this job done. That's what she said. After the third debate, when I criticized Ronna McDaniel after 5 failed years of leadership of this party and criticized Nikki for her corrupt foreign dealings as a military contractor, she said that I have a woman problem. Nikki, I don't have a woman problem. You have a corruption problem. And I think that that's what people need to know. Nikki is corrupt.
Governor Haley, would you like to respond?
No, it's not worth my time to respond to him.
So Ford, I mean, they really, none of them talked about what they're going to do for the country. They talked about how horrible each other was.
Yeah, look, sparks flew, insults were hurled, the daggers were out for Nikki Haley. My friend, it was the tussle in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. And frankly, to your point, I don't know what Republican primary voters gained out of it. Look, I think Ron DeSantis had a decent debate. Nikki Haley had her worst debate. Vivek Ramaswamy and Chris Christie, they're probably not going to make the turn past Iowa. So, look, the RNC is to put a pause on debates going forward. Herein lies the problem with that. I think that's great. Unfortunately, the problem is now the networks are going to step in. CNN, ABC, they're going to start running town halls from New Hampshire and from Iowa. And the problem is the candidates, because everyone's 40, 50 points behind Trump, the candidates are going to join in. And now CNN and ABC are going to be able to control the conversation. And we all know they're not exactly pro-Republican.
Well, you know, and you know, I'm pretty well in touch with Vivek's campaign manager, or one of them, and I put a call into him and talked to him briefly, but I was really surprised at how Vivek come off. Vivek didn't come off like a polished politician in that. He come off more of somebody that wanted to throw mud at the playground.
Well, look, I think when it comes to Vivek, I think he has a bright future, okay? Whether it's in politics or even as a TV commentator. And I think he's young. I think he's learning. He brought some great ideas. When he's talking about climate change handcuffing this country, he's absolutely right. But he has to understand that it's more than just making points. You cannot come across as grating and irritating, and you certainly can't challenge someone's womanhood, even though you may be right about her corruption. You know, you got to separate the points and make the points, and he just likes to be a bull in a china shop, and I think over time he's going to be a very valuable asset to the Republican Party, but as of right now, I see him in a learning process.
Well, I've seen enough of the debates. I think it's time for us to move on. Let's talk about former ousted Speaker Kevin McCarthy resigned. Now, I want to watch his announcement on his retiring, and I want you to tell me what you really think happened here.
Today, I am driven by the same purpose that I felt when I arrived in Congress. But now, it is time to pursue my passion in a new arena. While I'll be departing the House at the end of this year, I will never, ever give up fighting for this country that I love so much. To all those who have supported me through the years, especially our constituents, thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Almost a Hallmark gift card, I'm telling you.
Look, I can't believe this, okay? This guy is suffering from bruised ego syndrome. Okay, he got deposed as Speaker. Fine. Your job, though, is to finish out your term, and now you're choosing to leave at the end of the year. Now, remember, the Republicans got suckered by ousting George Santos, which took their majority down to 3. At the end of 2023, The majority is now going to be down to 2. And that's my problem. Kevin McCarthy didn't serve out his term. And as a result, because he was deposed as Speaker, he's now trying to stick it to Speaker Johnson because he doesn't want him to succeed. This is unbelievable. Democrats would never do this. And what's even nuttier is, as soon as he steps down, he endorsed President Trump and said, well, if you'd like me in the government as a cabinet secretary, I'd be very happy to serve. No, you don't get to serve for Trump because you let down the Republican Party by not finishing out your term. The good thing is he's from Bakersfield, California. He won by 40 points in the last election. So Republicans are going to hold his seat. But I'm sick and tired of politicians who make promises to the people and then they don't live up to those promises.
Well, I agree. Like I said, it came as a bit of a wimp out to me, the way I looked at it. And it hurts the conservatives more than it helps them by him doing what he done, like you said. Now, I want to talk about Trump made, in my opinion, a great comment. Of course, the fake news media pushes the narrative that he admits that he will be a dictator. I'm going to play the clip. Ford, tell me how the hell they come up with such ridiculous claims.
Under no circumstances, you are promising America tonight, you would never abuse power as retribution against anybody.
Except for day one.
Except
Look,
what?
He's going crazy. Except for day one.
Meaning?
I want to close the border and I want to drill.
That's not retribution. I'm
gonna be, you know, he keeps, we love this guy. He says, you're not gonna be a dictator, are you? I said, no, other than day one. We're closing the border and we're drilling. After that, I'm not a dictator.
So that sounds to me like you're going back to the policies when you were president.
Look, I mean, how did they blow that up and inflate that into he'll be a dictator forever? I agree. He needs a clean house from day one and start anew.
Look, you got to understand that this is a narrative that the media industrial complex and the Democrats have been pushing about Trump being a dictator if he's reelected. Obviously, Donald Trump was expressing humor, but you got to realize, I brought this up the last couple times we've gotten together, and that is Donald Trump is in the best polling position in terms of the general election that he's ever been in. Not in 2024, ever. He's in a better position right now than he ever was in 2016. And now the Democrats say, well, he's in a good polling position. We've tried to use the law against him by bringing 91 charges in 700 plus years. That's not deterring voters. They're seeing through our scheme. So now we have to come up with something new because the bottom line is Joe Biden looks like he's 100 years old. He's created the inflation problem, the border problem. We have to turn this into a high-stakes election and make it a referendum on Trump being a dictator. Here's what's so funny. If Trump was really a dictator, he would have declared martial law last time instead of leaving the Oval Office when he did. So the whole thing is nonsense, but it's designed to bolster Joe Biden. And what I find sad is that Fox News bought into this narrative when, in fact, Donald Trump sees what they're doing and all he's doing is expressing humor. He's saying, I'm not going to violate the Constitution, but on day one, be clear, I'm going to close the border and I'm going to drill for oil.
Hey, look, and that's what we need. You know, and I think about this, I was pushing before January 6th for Donald Trump to, and I thought he had every right to declare an insurrection by what was going on with the Democrats, burning down everything. I had, and with Nancy Pelosi tearing up his speeches in front of him, and he didn't do that. I mean, he was man enough to go ahead and let it fall, let the chips fall where they may. But then the cowards on the left, first thing, insurrection.
Look, Joe, remember, 10 minutes into Donald Trump's presidency, they tried to impeach him for a made-up Russia hoax. And at the time of his swearing in Washington, D.C., there were bigger riots going on than a lot of the other stuff the media chooses to focus on. The problem is the American public just only sees half of the equation. They don't see the other half. And if they saw this stuff side by side, they would tell you flat out, January 6th is a riot that got out of control. And the idea that a guy with horns and a flag okay, and face paint is somehow going to overthrow the top military in the world is beyond ridiculous. But that doesn't stop the Democrats and the media from lying.
Well, we're going to go ahead and talk about the political screw that got stuck to FSU. Ford, I know you're a huge college ball fan. I want to show you what Governor DeSantis said the other day in Marco, and then you can fill us in on what's really happening.
Now, I would be remiss if I didn't point out that we had one of our schools, Florida State, go undefeated this year and win the conference championship. And they earned a spot in the college football playoffs. And they were excluded from that, and I think was something that is very, very controversial. Now, I don't know what all goes into that decision making. I know a lot of people have been disappointed. I know the school and the Board of Governors are looking to see, is there anything that can be done? I don't think there would be anything where they could get relief prior to the tournament, obviously, but in terms of going forward, and I don't know if there is. But what we decided to do, we're setting aside $1 million for any litigation expenses that may become as a result of this really, really poor decision by the college football playoffs to exclude an undefeated team who won a big Power 5 conference championship. And look, I'm as governor, I didn't go to any of the Florida universities, and so I've said from the beginning, I just want us to get back to where Miami, Florida, and Florida State were always competing for the national championship. I want more of our blue chip high school recruits to stay in state and all that. And that's kind of been what I've done. But the fact that we live now in Tallahassee and in the governor's residence, my first grader, my fifth grader, and my preschooler, what they know is Tallahassee. And so they are all Noles, and they are big time fans, and they do the tomahawk chop. And they were not happy on Sunday when Florida State was left out on that college football special selection show. So it's unfortunate that we have to even do that, but we are going to put aside $1 million and let the chips fall where they may on that. I know now they're going to go forward, and it's going to be a larger playoff, which, I think maybe is probably too many teams, because there's a happy medium between having a playoff, which I think we should, to where the regular season doesn't mean as much anymore. I mean, to me, it's like if you win and you're undefeated, that should mean something. I mean, that should really be significant. And they're telling us that it doesn't, that other factors matter more. So that's just not how I would approach it. Nevertheless, we are going to continue to ensure that our higher education, and you know what? And I got to thank Florida State, because I used to kind of joke with trustees, some of the college presidents in the past, because Florida, the state of Florida would be able to say we've done so well in higher education. I mean, Florida State is ranked in the top 15 public universities, University of Florida, number 5. Wall Street Journal even ranked University of Florida #1 public in the country. So you have all this stuff, and it's good, and there's a lot of excitement about that. And all I would say is, I like those academic rankings. I just want the football rankings to match that. Florida State delivered on that. I mean, they did everything that we could have asked for them to do, and I think that they're going to continue to do well as a program. And that makes it exciting when these teams are doing well. It really makes it fun to be in Florida.
So, he set out $1 million for potential lawsuits. What's really going on with this sport? Because I know you know more about it than me.
Well, let me back up and explain. As you know, college football is a religion in Florida, much of the Southeast, the Southwest, the Midwest. How shall I say, the Republican states. There's a high salience between Republican voters and their love of college football. And here's what's so crazy. Here's what's so disgraceful. Florida State University was the first Power 5 college football team that went undefeated and won the ACC conference championship, its conference championship, that was left out of the college football playoff. And for those who don't watch football, you're like, well, this is just a little thing. Here's the problem. The selection process is not objective. It's subjective. And Florida State basically got booted because their star player quarterback, Jordan Travis, got hurt. Now, for people who don't follow this and say, okay, well, it's just a football game. Here's the problem for Florida State. If you've been admitted to the college football playoff, that's millions of dollars for the university. That's millions of dollars in ticket sales, future ticket sales, merchandise, donations. And you need, remember, Ron said, I want to get those blue chip recruits. That's how you get the blue chip recruits to come, is by getting into that playoff. So there are untold millions of dollars in damage being done to Florida State University because a 13 to 15 member board of people that don't even really watch college football decided that undefeated Florida State was not good enough to get in, but we'll take one loss Texas and Alabama. Unfortunately, the college football selection committee is about as corrupt as OPEC is when it comes to actually doing things. Now, I tip my hat to Ron DeSantis for trying to set aside this $1 million to do this. Rick Scott, our senator, is trying to do the same thing by demanding records from the committee about how they decided which 4 teams are going to be in there. Unfortunately, this is the politics of college football, and I don't think that there's ever going to be any restitution between now and January 1st when the tournament kicks off. So, unfortunately, Florida State University got screwed.
And it's sad. I mean, look, you know, I don't follow it like you did. I played football through high school. I like Florida teams. I mean, I don't care if Florida teams is the teams I'm going to support. I like watching them go head to head. You know, if you're a Gators fan or if you're a Seminoles fan, either way, they are our teams.
Well, that's exactly right. My brother went to UF. I'm a big Miami Hurricanes fan. Might have been because of the 80s and Jimmy Johnson. Who knows? But at the same time, I always want to see Florida State do well, except when they're playing Miami, because it is good for the state. We want to bring the best and the brightest. And remember, these universities, that is how we're going to strengthen Florida going forward for the future. And let me tell you something else. It's not just, you know, the football side, because a lot of times Boston College back in the 80s, you know, Doug Flutie threw a big pass against the University of Miami, and next year the applications doubled. The same thing has happened with Duke University, where I went, in basketball. So this is a very, very big thing. And the idea of going undefeated, winning your conference, and being this good other than an injury, this happens once in a generation. And that's why it's so soul-crushing for the players, coaches, and students in Tallahassee at Florida State University.
Well, Ford, we'll get to that point where everybody waits for, and you know what time it is. It's time for
MANS trash.
And today we are going to have a guest with us. Joining us this week for discussion on the MANS trash, let's welcome Robert Bob Sutter. Mr. Sutter has served our country honorably as an Army field grade officer and is seeking your support in the vacant Cape Coral City Council seat in District 4 to represent the residents of Cape Coral. Now, first, I want to make sure everybody knows, I met Bob about a year ago through his lovely partner, who I consider a wonderful person. While we did talk politics at that time, Bob never indicated no interest to me in seeking elected office. And Bob, I remember you shared some interesting story about your brother being Mike Pence's college roommate, and you had a familiar relationship with the Pence family. That's how the discussion went, as I recall.
Yeah, you're right on track. My brother and Mike Pence actually roomed directly after college while they were working for the college. And they became really, really close friends. They both went to each other's weddings. Yeah, you're right on target with that, Jim.
Yeah, and we talked a little about your military career. Just so everyone knows, I have met with you only one other time, and that was last Sunday, when I sat down and asked why you would want to get involved with such a fractured and untrusted establishment-controlled council.
Absolutely correct. This is last week was the second time that we've ever met, and we're able to share more than 5 minutes of our time together.
Yeah, and hopefully after you talk with me and Ford, you still have the warrior spirit to proceed in this corrupt arena. Ford and I both looked over your credentials. If you would, Robert, tell the viewers a brief overview of your accomplishments, please.
Yeah, I'd like to start with childhood, if you don't mind. I'm an Eagle Scout, one of 4 Eagle Scouts, and that's where the foundation of my character grew. And then I was in the Army. I actually went in the Army as an enlisted soldier. And due to the INF Treaty, for those of you that can remember that far back, that's when the Berlin Wall fell. I was actually over in Germany when it fell. And that allowed me the opportunity to go to the officer candidate school and for me to become a second lieutenant. Upon which I went to Desert Storm, Desert Shield, came back from that, had a variety of other occupations or jobs, because every 3 years you move in the military. So, had a lot of different experiences, a lot of room to grow and to learn different cultures and management styles, things like that. But I also participated in not just Desert Storm, Desert Shield, but Bosnia and Kosovo, Operation Enduring Freedom, Iraqi Freedom. And when I was OEF, I was actually the officer that was in charge or responsible for all the units that rotated and redeployed in and out of theater. So this was back in 2003. And when my boss handed me the task, I said, all right, who's my predecessor? And he said, oh, there isn't one. And I said, okay, is there an Army regulation? No, we don't have one of those either. And oh, by the way, you have to get this entire process approved through joint staff in 2 weeks. Good luck. Let me know if you need any help. And that's how my indoctrination in the OEF was. But I also worked on a program called the BRAC, Base Realignment Closure Act. I supported the Army on that and did a lot of work with that, moving installations around and soldiers. There's a lot of work that goes into that activity. So, but that kind of knocks out my military career, Joe. But I also spent a lot of time supporting the Army. I worked for a large contractor, and we put the Army's logistics, all their sustainment activities, or logistics, or maintenance, or property accountability, warehouse movements, things like that. Put it all into one big solution. And at the time, it was the largest implementation of an ERP solution, that's Enterprise Resource Planning Solution, in the history of DoD. It's valued at about $1.3 billion. So big numbers don't scare me.
Bob, let me ask you a couple of things. In Cape Coral, first of all, thank you for your service, because first of all, you made it through the Cold War, you made it to the War on Terror, and I mean, you haven't even told people the number of awards you received in the military, and I'm going through the list, and it's almost 2 pages long. So you were definitely a true patriot on that front. Now, in Cape Coral, basically 1 in 10 in Cape Coral served in the military at some point in their life. And my question to you is, given your military experience, how do you think that will translate into you being, the ideal candidate for the city council?
Well, I think it's critical that, we actually have over 14,000 veterans and family members that live in Cape Coral, and it's humbling. I want to, to represent these people. We've got over 64 military organizations around to visit, the VFWs, and I belong to a few of those. And then we have over 200,000 veterans that come to Cape Coral annually for help at the VA clinic. And I want to represent those people. That's my people, and that's one of the organizations I want to represent. I do want to make it abundantly clear, if you don't mind, Joe, real quick, is I'm not beholden to anyone. I'm a veteran. I'm an officer. The only people I want to be beholden to is the citizens and the residents of Cape Coral.
Well, and that was what I was going to say. The deck is already stacked against you because you're not affiliated with the cabal that controls everything here. You're not affiliated with any vendors or any promoting any special interest groups other than veterans. And if you are appointed, you will be the only person on the board who has served our country in a military capacity. Think about that, board.
Look, that is impressive, and I think it's important to point that out because, correct me if I'm wrong, Bob, but there are 13 or 12 other candidates that are seeking this appointment. So it's very hard to stand out, and that's why when Joe brought you to my attention, I was like, holy smokes, here's somebody who's not beholden to the cabal. Here's somebody who's clearly into public service and a patriot. How can we, if you had to say, beyond your service, what do you think you bring more than any of the other 12 candidates to this potential appointment that would make Cape Coral a better place?
Temperament.
That's a short demand in Cape Coral.
Yeah, but I mean temperament because with my experiences and vast experiences, I don't make decisions quick, and I'm always wanting to know what is the return on investment, especially taxpayers' money, citizens. Who are we benefiting? Who is benefiting from what we're doing? What you can't appease everybody all the time, but let's get 80-90% of people. Make sure we're spending their tax dollars wisely. So,
well, out of the 13 applicants, and in my opinion, the absolute worst is Jennifer Nelson, who believes that this position is owed to her because she lost by 60% of the vote. And before I talk about Jennifer Nelson, I want to show a few pictures here of who Jennifer Nelson's friends are. If you can see here, this gentleman on the left, if you're not sure who that is, yes, you're correct. That is this gentleman, Andrew Gillum. And if you're not sure, there's her with Nikki Fried and Fitzenheimer, who is a RINO, and she's been nothing more than a RINO. These people, Jennifer Nelson has always been a Democrat, and it's going to be a tough go because you've got so many people that don't realize who they're actually voting for. That's why when I look through other than Carr, because Carr will work in the school board, but you are more qualified, in my opinion, than the actual mayor.
Well, I appreciate that, Joe. Well, thank you. I'm kind of humbled by those comments.
Well, no, I think it's just, Bob, I just think it's important, to give every potential opportunity because it's very hard for people to know. And, we already know that the deck is stacked against you, but it's important for those who live in Cape Coral and Southwest Floridians to know what you're all about because, eventually, if you don't wind up winning the appointment, there'll be another opportunity in election. I think that this is a good time to let everyone know who you are, what you stand for, and why you'll make Cape Coral a better place. I mean, are there any additional things that you think you bring that you think is missing currently in Cape Coral?
The ability to communicate with our residents, to have the ability to understand their concerns, and then articulate and help untangle some misunderstandings. So, I'm pretty good with people.
Well,
I enjoy meeting the people. I've never met a stranger. Let's put it that way.
Right. Well, the problem we have is, and I'll be quite honest with you, that's kind of what most of them say until they get elected. I don't believe you're that type of person. And you like y'all said, you're not beholden to none of them. And like I said, the leading contender against you is going to be Jennifer Nelson. And she is a candidate that the Republican Party should reject. She's a lifelong liberal socialist Democrat who recently changed her party for the sole purpose to be a part of the establishment. Jennifer Nelson has never changed her values or belief when she became a Republican, and those Republicans who support her know what she is, and they should be ashamed of themselves for ever supporting her. During her election campaign, she openly fought against the censoring of sexually explicit books. She believes in free handouts and publicly posts on social media that her own child, who is almost an adult in a school not part of the Lee County School District, one of the pay schools, which is on funding and pays its own COs hundreds of thousands of dollars. Jennifer Nelson demanded busing for her daughter and felt she deserved it. Why does these people feel like they are deserving because they're in public office?
Yeah, go ahead, Bob.
No, go ahead, Ford. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, I think this is one of the things that needs to change. Let's walk through this. This appointment, the decision is going to be made when?
On the 13th.
And how's the process going to work out? It's important for the viewers to understand how this appointment process is going to unfold.
Right. So, to the best of my understanding, as they've explained it to me, they'll hold the regular meeting, and then once they get finished with their general business, they're going to separate each candidate, take them out of the room, and then they're going to allow them each in one at a time to give their 3 minutes speech, and then they're going to be asked questions by the city council. And then once you are complete with your comments, your speech, and answering the questions, you're going to be allowed to remain in the room as everyone else comes through that process. As far as are they going to vote sitting right there, I believe that was their intent, is that once everybody was done, they would internally have a short discussion in the room, and then they would go for a yay or nay.
Well, now Nelson was a big supporter, and people need to know who your lead opponent is. She was also a big supporter and was one of the honorees of the disgraceful LGBTQ parade in Cape Coral, and so was our mayor, the mayor, John Gunner, where there was 6 apparatuses placed on dogs, and many of the participants barely wearing any clothing and gravitated in very sexually explicit manner. These are not core conservative values, and they blamed the city manager, Ron Hernandez, for promoting this parade, but he was just an employee. He couldn't do anything without the blessing of the elected officials and the city council members and the mayor. He was the fall guy for this, and the mayor. And in my opinion, they used the seat you're vying for with Patty Cummins to get rid of them. And once they done that bidding, they got to get one of their established cronies back in there. That's who you're going up against. Do you understand how dirty the game is here in Cape Coral?
Yes, I do now. Thanks for shedding the light on it. Like I said, this is only the 3rd time we've met. And every time I have a conversation with you, I learn even more. So, yeah, it's going to be a slippery slope.
Bob, let me ask you this. Let's say you're appointed. What's the first thing you would push to do? What is the number one thing that you drive to try to fix or to make the Cape Coral community better?
Well, I think the first thing you got to fix is the image of the city council. Our community has totally lost trust. They realize they don't have a voice in what goes on. So you got to fix that. And how you fix that is through constant communication, meeting with people, going to events, and just being available to talk with people and help with any of their misunderstandings. And then the second thing I want to do when I'm there is I want to be able to take an assessment of some of the activities that are upcoming and ask the hard questions. Why are we doing this? What's the return? And don't tell me, oh, well, that was planned before I got there. Those answers don't work for me. Have some ownership in what you do, have some responsibility in the decisions you make. But I'm also the one that says once the decision is made, you go forward with it. You back it 110%. You had a vote, your vote was heard, it was counted, and you're the only one, and so we're going to do this. So I'm like, that's okay. You got to live to fight another day.
Look, I salute you 100% on that, because accountability and transparency are in short supply in Cape Coral. And I think that's the most important point, is that you want to make the city council work for the people versus the other way around.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, folks, this decision is this Wednesday at the Cape Coral City Hall starting at 4:30. I encourage everyone, especially our veterans, to come out and show your support for the only disabled veteran candidate in the Purple Heart City, I may add, to fill the vacant position. Ford, I've never endorsed a candidate in Cape Coral for city council, but I do believe Robert Sutter is the right man. I've looked over all the candidates. He is the only one I felt I wanted to reach out and talk to. And you have from Smoking Joe Nation, you have our full endorsement for this seat, Mr. Sutter.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
And thanks for joining us, Bob. And we'll see you. I'll see you on Wednesday, I'm sure.
I just got one last thing to say.
Yes, sir.
Go Army, beat Navy.
All right, Bob. I'll talk to you soon, my friend.
We'll see you.
See you later. Ford, yeah, I really like the guy, but let's just get back. Where is the legislation on election integrity right now? What's going on with this?
You know, this is becoming one of the biggest problems in the state, along with insurance. I mean, I'm starting to wonder, where we have it. DeSantis made some good steps, but at the rate we're going, I'm starting to wonder, can we trust our own to run our own elections? I'm very, very concerned.
Well, it seems our local legislators, headed by Mike Giambardo, and no doubt with the support of Mike Caldwell, seem to be on a mission to destroy the Florida government to gain more control. And I've spoke with you on this before. This adding 2 more seats, this super mayor. This is not good for Southwest Florida.
No, it's not good. And let me reiterate why it's not good. Because first of all, you're asking taxpayers to pony up more money for more government. And we all know that more government brings more problems. And at the end of the day, this is so that the establishment cabal, basically those who Terry Miller's their consultant, will be able to consolidate power. I mean, these folks are trying to make it so that they control more of your lives and they don't work for you, you work for them. And that is what has got to scare every single Republican. Heck, it should scare a lot of Democrats, maybe not necessarily for the political reasons Democrats think, but I'm very, very concerned that the establishment in Lee County is proposing more government so they can control more aspects of your life and take more of your tax-paying dollar.
Well, and I noticed, there was a couple things. Giambardo, in the last legislative delegation that I attended, he really was bringing up the point about where the charter members lived. And I'm wondering if he's trying to pull the same thing that Cape Cool's done with Patty Cummins, claiming that they don't live within their district. And he's trying to, he's really trying to poke the bear with Cecil Pendergrass, but I'm not so sure that they're not elected officials. I'm not so sure they have to live in the district.
Well, I don't know the exact particulars. I understand what you're saying. Do you actually think Mike Giambardo thought this up on his own?
No.
We know who thought this up. Terry Miller thought this up.
Absolutely.
Basically, Mike Giambardo is crosswise with Terry Miller, and he's doing everything possible to make his master happy again.
And look, you know yourself, you've seen what Jonathan Martin done to Cecil Pendergrass. That little sly comment, what if we have them make the same as you pay $30,000 like we pay? You know that was a red herring just to poke Cecil some more.
There is no question that the knives are out for Cecil because Cecil, to some extent, dared to speak the truth. I'm not sure Cecil's speaking the entire truth all the time, but on this issue, he's definitely doing the right thing.
Well, I told Cecil, I said, Cecil, I have not always agreed with some of the things that you have supported. However, I fully support what you're trying to do to prevent more government, because what people ain't looking at, more government becomes the way, if you really look at it, it's not just 2 added seats. With the super mayor, then you're going to add more lawyers, because those lawyers for the super mayor or the county manager, they're not for the board. So you're adding more lawyers too.
Well, you're adding more lawyers, you're adding more staff. The administrative state is getting bigger, and I think that's the problem. People just think, oh, it's just 2 positions. No, it's a whole bunch of people. And, that's going to be the problem. And now you're going to have more layers of bureaucracy, and it's going to be harder and harder to do things. We all came, well, you're from Southwest Florida, but we all came to Southwest Florida because we were trying to get away from too much government, too much bureaucracy, being told what to do. And frankly, the quality of life in Southwest Florida is second to none. When you add more government, you're harming what makes Southwest Florida great.
Well, and the legislators with the delegation, let's just be real. You had Mike Gilombardo. He's on a mission to try to do whatever Terry Miller.
He's on a mission to make Terry Miller happy again.
Exactly. Yeah, because we know that there's a little rift going on. Then you got Tiffany Esposito. I've asked everybody, and I'll ask this right now. I even asked Tiffany right here on the stage, what have you done for Southwest Florida? Tell me one thing you've done for the district you represent. I cannot find a thing she's done for Southwest Florida.
No, Tiffany's master is the Chamber of Commerce. That's where she works. She draws a paycheck, and it is a conflict of interest that she's actually sitting as a state rep trying to say she represents the people when in fact she just represents the Chamber of Commerce. I mean, it's absolutely unbelievable. And you know, Brian Hammond has had the same problem in the past before as well. So we have to look into this. People say, well, we like the Chamber of Commerce. I told you the Chamber of Commerce went after Donald Trump. The Chamber of Commerce went after me, the local and state one. And the reason is very simple. We are, capitalists. But you're not. These are people that are for the Chinese Communist Party. These are people that are for open borders. These are people that want to move you out of your house so they can build something new. These people are not for America. They're for making money, and they're for destroying what makes Southwest Florida great.
They're not public servants. They're public self-servants.
No, they're public puppets of big corporations that are destroying Southwest Florida.
I agree. And then lastly, but not leastly, you had Adam Botana. Now, look, Adam, for whatever reason, is trying to frost his hair, I guess, make him look like he's got more miles, look educated. Look, I don't know what's going on with Adam, but he said right there, you can find me any day, just come out to my marina. How in the hell are they doing legislating if I can find him every day out there on the boat dock? This cannot continue to be a part-time position. We need people that are doing this full-time so that they are doing what's best for the entire community and not for their boating buddies or any of this other stuff.
I think you're absolutely right. This is a point I've made in the past. And like most all conservatives, I'm against more government. But in this case, our state representatives, they have to be full-time, not part-time. Other states of our size, they are full-time. Remember, if Florida was a standalone country, we'd be the 13th largest country in the world in terms of GDP. We need a legislature that is working full-time on our behest, because when you have a part-time legislature, the problem is you get these conflicts of interest. You get people that are taking the $29,000 but are really getting paid off from the very people that are actually lobbying the legislature when they're not in session. Make the Florida legislature full-time. Make it work for Florida. Because you want to know why we don't have insurance solved? Is because they can go home. If they couldn't go home, this would be solved. So would a lot of other problems. We are the envy of America and almost the envy of the world. You know, when I go abroad to Europe, the first question they ask me is, everyone goes, oh, I'm from New York, this, that. I say Florida. First thing they all say, tell me more about Florida. I mean, I am telling you, everywhere I go throughout Europe, first thing they say, Florida. And I mean, we are pissing away an opportunity to be leading the country and the world.
Oh, I totally agree. I mean, every time I've been overseas, and it's the same thing. I'm from Florida. Oh, and they automatically think beaches and Disney World. That's what they know of Florida, but they know that Florida's the place they want to visit. And in a lot of the communist countries, the closest they can get to even seeing something to Florida is Cuba. So that's where they vacation. So
look, that's exactly right. We are in the heyday of the state of Florida. This is the greatest time in the history of Florida. And we have an opportunity to build a Florida that's for another 100 years, the envy of the country, the envy of the world. The problem is we don't have a state legislature that's actually working to fix those problems because they're not a full-time legislature and because they can be bought too easily based on the rules governing Florida politics.
Well, I'm going to move on to my last story. Michael Thompson, and he's the chairman of the Lee County REC, and this has got nothing to do with the REC. He is threatening to sue the Lee County School District. And in this instance, I have to say I believe that he has every right to do so. The controversy stems from a teacher in defiance of Florida state laws that has posted a collage prominently displayed at Riverdale High School where Michael Thompson's daughter attends. And I'll show you the picture. That was the picture that Michael Thompson complained about. And according to everything I understand from what the governor put in the law, is that's not allowed.
Yeah, it does not appear to be allowed. And from my understanding of the state regulations and laws, that shouldn't be happening. And you know, he's right to bring this up. You need to be enforcing the laws on the books. And if Michael Thompson goes ahead and sues and, you know, it's knocked down, well, then, hey, now we know what it needs to be done, you know, up in Tallahassee. I think this is a good thing for him to pursue. Well, he did contact who was at the time, Armored Persons. That is his district. Again, I want to show you Armored Persons quote. Forward. That's Armored Person's job. He does not, if he does not know his job after a year, he was a chairman for a year. That is exactly what he was put in place to do. He should have had that down the same day, and the teacher should have been questioned, or at least if she's not going to comply, she should have been terminated.
Makes you wonder why Ron DeSantis ever endorsed Armored Persons in the first place.
We all know
maybe he got tricked along the way, but that's exactly right. Armour has to push back and try to uphold the laws on the books. Now, if the laws on the books wind up protecting this, that's a different story. But my interpretation is that it doesn't, and his job is to enforce the laws, particularly in his own district, which it appears, just like everything else, Armored Persons isn't doing.
To me, Black Lives Matter is a terrorist organization. And if they can put a Black Lives Matter fist up in the school on a collage, why is it if some racists come up and put kill Jews or the Ku Klux Klan, why is that any different than what this teacher is doing?
Well, this is what happens with the teachers and the DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion curriculum that has turned our teaching sideways and is killing our kids' ability to learn. Look, I think you're absolutely right about this. You raise a lot of good points, Joe, particularly with what's going on in America today with anti-Semitism being the 60% of the hate crimes in this country. I think we need to find out what exactly the laws are on this. It appears that the laws say you can't do this. We need to find out and make sure that our laws work in this instance.
Well, in my opinion, this is just the cherry on the top of the cupcake for a reason from Armored Persons to be removed from the school district. Somebody that is that incompetent has no place having anything to do with our educational system.
Well, look, only time's going to tell if that is indeed the case, but I definitely think that we need to push back, find out if our laws work. And if they do work, and your interpretation, my interpretation is right, then that should raise some serious questions about Armour and his fitness for the job.
And realistically, I have serious questions right now is where's Ron DeSantis? With all the corruption that is happening in Southwest Florida and all of it being from people he endorsed, he should have his ass sitting right down here in the middle of Lee County holding a meeting and said, that ain't why I endorsed y'all. We're not going to tolerate this. Where is Ron DeSantis? He needs to come here and do his job.
Well, I will say this. If Donald Trump wins Iowa on January 15th, then Ron DeSantis will be back in Florida, and hopefully he will be doing his job, because I will say this about Ron. I'm a little crosswise with Ron
about what he's been doing lately, but I will say this. I have belief in Ron. I think he's the greatest governor we've ever had in the modern history of Florida. I just need him to come home, do his job, and be the greatest governor in America.
Well, Ford, I really appreciate you joining me again this week. I hope the viewers get what we're trying to push out. We're not trying to push out something just to push it out. We're trying to help you understand what everybody else is trying to hide from you. And I didn't want to bring it up when Mr. Sutton was here, but that Wednesday meeting, if you're a Cape Coral resident, there's something you need to know that's going to be hidden into this agenda for that Cape Coral meeting. They're going to push through a resolution to allow an increase of, rounded off to $40,000, was $3,333 some change for each elected board member just for their expenses to travel around Cape Coral. And I think it's $50,000 for the mayor.
Let me weigh in on this for a second, Joe. I need people to understand this is resolution 351-23. And what they're trying to do is give, as I understand it, basically $3,333 a month to each of the city council members as a stipend. They're trying to give the same sort of ratio to the mayor as well. Understand, that's another $33,000, basically, to your point, $40,000 a year. What's their current salary, Joe? Is it at $29,000?
Yep. Yes.
So they're trying to double their own salary through a stipend on your taxpayer's dollar, and they're trying to give the mayor basically a whole other salary. So be careful of what they're trying to do with your taxpayer dollar. So that's just as important, making sure the people know that they're getting fleeced and they're trying to give themselves a pay raise in the form of a stipend.
Well, I'm going to say this, and I want to make sure that Cape Coral knows I did put in a public records request, and I put in a few keywords. They are going to try to charge me because they don't want me to have the information. However, I was, out of what I've asked for, there's 488 pages of documents that I'm going to have to go down to Cape Coral, which probably Wednesday when I show up, I'm going to give them the check. And I'm going to find out. We're going to bring out, I believe this whole board is corrupt. And if I have any chance of proving it, I'm going to let our residents know that we've been duped and it's time for us to take our country back. Ford, as always, I appreciate you. Thanks for joining me. Florida, we love you. Please look into your elected officials. I'm sorry to say that 70% or close to it don't realize what's really going on in local government behind the scenes, and you need to start looking. My only agenda is to try to expose the corruption that has been this area has been took over by, and you've got a lot of players. I can name them all. I don't even have time today, but we'll catch you next time. Ford, thank you again, my friend.
Thank you as well, my friend.
I'll see you soon.
You got it.